Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday and welcome to the WOTS Weekly Features. Today, it is time to get crafty. We're learning how to make our very own chapbooks with the League of Canadian Poets' very own chapbook designer, Nic Brewer. I'm Sienna Tristan, and I'll be your host. WOTS Toronto operates on land that is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. This territory is the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which is an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Confederacy of the Anishinaabeg and Allied Nations to care for and share the resources around the Great Lakes in peace. We encourage you to learn about the land you're living on, wherever you're tuning in from. So our guest for today is wonderful Nic Brewer. Hello there.
Hi.
Nic is a queer writer and editor from Toronto. She writes fiction mostly. Her first novel, Suture, is forthcoming from Book Hug in fall 2021. Personal side note, super excited for it. She's the co-founder of Frond, an online literary journal for prose by LGBTQI2 essay writers, and formerly co-managed the micropress Words on Pages, little parentheses there. She loves both reading and making books and really wants to hear about what you love most in the world. She lives in Kitchener with her girlfriend and their dog. I am so excited for you to be here showing your talent and your craft with us. Thank you for spending an afternoon with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I love making chapbooks and I love sharing my excitement. So this is great.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you're going to be showing us.
Yeah, so we're going to run through a demo first thing. I will take you through how to make a saddle stitch chapbook, which is just an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Well, several 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, folded in half and sewn along the fold. So we'll go through that, but it doesn't take very long. So once we've done that, I'm also just going to talk a little bit about some of the other types of bookbinding that I like, what I like so much about chapbooks, and the type of stuff you can do.
I love it. All right, let's get started. I'm going to add your demo to the stream. I'm going to organize us a little bit. That's my large face. You don't want to see that. You want to see this.
Perfect.
Okay.
So what I do to design these is I work in InDesign. You can work in any layout software. I just like InDesign. I taught it to myself. It works for me, but whatever you use works. What you want to do is make sure that your pages are half letter size so that they will end up in a full letter spread. And when you are finished laying it all out, you can either print it directly to your printer or you can print it to a PDF. What you want to do is make sure that it's printing as a booklet. It will shuffle the pages appropriately so that when it folds, it will be in the correct order. So you've got, page 1 and then page 2 instead of page 1 and then page 14.
That's happened to me before.
Yes, exactly. So the way I design and print them is I design them myself in InDesign, and then I print to a booklet, but I just print it to a PDF, so all the pages are in the right order, and then I send it to Staples. I just get Staples or any local print shop, print it double-sided, short edge printing. That means that it's flipping this way instead of this way, because that wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So short edge printing. And I like to use 28-pound paper. It's a little bit heavier than the normal paper you use in a printer. 20-pound paper is like a fairly standard printer paper. I like to use 28 if I can. 24 is also good. But we'll talk about this a little later. You can really do whatever you want. So once it's all printed, personally, I like to print the covers separately. So I will print the interior. I will design the interior all at once. So starting with the title page, I'll print the interior all at once through Staples, but then I print the covers at home. I just find it can be a little more fun. I can do it last minute, which is important to me. And you can play with paper a little bit more. So I have recently discovered this vellum paper from Staples. So it's a little see-through. So I've printed my cover, which I designed separately just on an 8.5 by 11 landscape spread. So I printed that on my printer. It's just a normal laser printer. And then I use, I call it an end paper. I'm not even sure if I'm using the word right, but it's just a colored blank sheet of paper that I put between the cover and the title page of the chapbook. I think it just really elevates it. I did it once, fell in love, and have done it every time since. Sometimes I'll use fancy paper for the end paper, and that'll be where I get my nice paper fix from. And other times I will just use Staples colored paper, and I'll use a nice paper for the cover. So it really depends on what you want to do. This is just like an everyday neon pink sheet of paper. Which are words that don't necessarily go together. Everyday neon pink. Anyway, so once you have it all printed out, you're just going to lay it all on top of each other. You can see I've folded mine already, but I'm folding it with you anyway. And then you just fold it in half, crease it. It doesn't have to be a crazy good crease yet. It can be a little spacious still there. That's fine. You just want to make sure that it's folded. You will absolutely have
the edges
here. Those you'll fix up later, so don't worry about it now. And I recommend doing a test print before you print all of them, or perhaps even before you use any fancy paper, to make sure that it looks great. Like, I didn't do a test print, so this cover is a little too far. Whoop, it's inverted. Is a little too far off to the side. So I will adjust my design so that it prints a little more in the center next time. So once you have this folded, what you're going to do is measure and stab holes. I'm not going to do that live. I have already done it. But you will open your chapbook again to the center fold. And then I just do it with a ruler and a pencil. On the LCP Chapbook Series website, there's a little PDF guide that has some information in it from this presentation, like the details, like the measurements that I do for a 5-hole chapbook. So I just use my ruler, I mark my measurements with a pencil down the inside seam, or fold rather, and then I use an awl. You can get these from any craft store. If you are in Toronto, I got all of my bookbinding supplies from Hanji, and I love Hanji so much. It's a Korean stationery store, and I love the people who run it. And I use an awl, but you can just use a hammer and nail. You can use anything that will poke a hole in a stack of paper. So then you poke your holes, and now you're ready to sew. For the length of thread, it's about 18 inches for this type of binding on this size chapbook, but you can also measure it. It's about twice the length of your chapbook height. I don't know if you could see that. I was looking at it and not myself. So then to sew, you thread your needle, which I also didn't do on camera because it can take me a comically long time sometimes.
Hours.
Yep. What you're going to do is you're going to start with the middle hole. From the inside out, you're going to start in the middle hole, pull your thread through, and leave a tail of about 1/2 inch or 1 inch, and that's for the end. And then you are going to sew logically, basically. Oh, look, I've made this hard for myself. In the next hole, right underneath that, from the outside in, you're going to pull through. You don't want to pull too tight because you don't want to lose your tail. And then again, just the next hole from the inside out, you're going to go down and through. You'll be able to pull a little tighter here because it'll start having a little more security in the stitches. So now we are in the bottom hole. You're going to go up through the hole right on top of that. So you've already been through it one direction and you're going through it the other way now. So you've got thread there, and you've also got thread there. So now what you're going to do is you're actually going to skip the middle hole on your way over. So your needle should be on the inside. You're going to skip the middle hole, and you're going to go down through the hole on the other side of the middle hole. And so you've got this extra long stitch right here, crossing over the middle hole. And then you are going to sew logically again along the other side. From the outside in, going to go through the top hole. Whoops. And you'll be able to pull quite tight now. It's very secure, so you'll want to make sure that you're pulling nice and tight. Don't pull too hard though. It is paper and it will rip. I've done that. So you can rip and damage the holes. Then you're going to go down through the next hole, and now we're on our last stitch. So you can see on the inside, you've got the whole thread, the whole, oh my gosh, I can't even think of the word I'm looking for. Anyway, complete. And then on the outside, you can see we're just missing this section here. So what you're going to do is you are going to come back up through that hole again, just right back into the middle of the chapbook, and then we're done with our needle. And so you can see you have two tails here coming out from the middle hole of the chapbook. And we also have this piece of thread here from when we went over the middle hole. So you want one of these tails on either side of the thread. They're both on the same side of the thread right now, so I don't want that. So I'm going to move one over. Typically you would just aim with the needle, but I wanted to show you. So you're just going to move one over so you have one on either side of the middle thread. And then you just tie it in a knot. I do a double knot. And then you cut it, but I've failed to bring my scissors. So you cut it to whatever you want. And then the last step is getting it nice and flat and getting these edges flush. So I now use what's called a bone folder, which is, this is just like a stick of bamboo. I used to just use a Sharpie. So I like to put it with the back up. So the cover is on my cutting surface. And then you're going to use whatever it is that you're using, whether it's a bone folder or anything that's
a ruler or something like that, yeah.
And you're going to just crease the outside down with the assistance of this hard thing now. If it's a thick chapbook, which this is, you might have to go a couple of times. It can be a little bit finicky. Sometimes it'll wrinkle the paper. Sometimes it'll, I've also had it wrinkle the paper on the inside before. I'm not even sure how that happens. I haven't been doing that long enough to give you tips and tricks yet. It's really just trial and error. So now you can see it's, it's more flat than it was the first time we folded it, but we still have these edges here that are not flush. So I'm not sure if you can see here, but the gray is the edge of my, or this like grayish color is the edge of my cover. So I want to trim all of this down to at least there. And I'm going to give maybe a millimeter extra. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler. It's not aligning to any of the guides on my cutting mat because I'm aligning it to the paper itself. I am making the edge straight to the paper. So I'm going to give 2 millimeters actually. So the line of my ruler is about 2 millimeters in from the outside edge of the cover paper that's visible. And then I just use an X-Acto knife. Whoops. And whoop. Doing this live on camera, of course I would mess up.
So satisfying watching it curl off though.
It is important to have a sharp blade. One, because it's tiresome to have to go over it as many times as I am right now. And two, because when it is a dull blade, it will have more trouble getting like a clean cut. And so this one turned out pretty well. It's pretty nice and soft here, but sometimes you'll get like little like flyaways, little shreds of paper. And there you go. You've got a chapbook.
Beautiful. Look at that, in like less than like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Poets at home, journalers, people who want little notebooks with cute covers, you can make your own.
Yes. So if there weren't any questions or anything like that, I can just show a couple more ways of making chapbooks.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. maybe if we could switch the...
Let's do it.
Yeah. Perfect. We probably don't even need the demo hands anymore.
I will. You have your 4 pairs of hands.
I know, it's confusing. Okay, great. Perfect. So this chapbook, as we just did, the knot is in the middle, right? And you would cut down these tails, and then it would just be a little, the seam is in the middle, and the outside is flush. If you wanted to, you could tie the knot on the outside. You would just reverse each of the steps, and then you could have a little bow on the outside if you wanted that to be a little design element. So that's fun. And then with this type of chapbook, this is a saddle stitch chapbook, there are a couple of design options that you can do. I mean, there are more than a couple. There are infinite design things you can do. You can vary the paper. You can vary the design. You can make them open this way instead of this way. Made a chapbook like that before, and it's fun. You can trim them down to size so that they are small. This one was one I just made for myself for fun. And I did like a die cut. So this is 2 sheets of paper. So this is one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that I did a die cut leaf here. You can do it with like a Cricut or any kind of die cutting machine. I just did it with a stencil and an X-Acto knife because I'm like that.
It's beautiful.
And then I also trimmed about 1.5 inches off of the edge of this sheet so that you could see the title on the sheet below. So this one is the one that has the printing on it, and this one just has the die cut cover. You can also, this was another fun trick that I enjoyed doing. So this is hand sewn. It's a little harder to see, but it is hand sewn. You can see the thread there. But you can't see the thread on the outside because we put a little bit of washi tape along the fold to give it more of a spine type of look. It can also be really expensive to print color. And because I'm typically printing enough of them that it would be a not insignificant sum to print covers in color, this is a really fun way to add color to a design. You can also use different color embroidery thread for the for sewing the folds. You can use wax thread or bookbinder's thread; those do exist, and they are fine. But I have found that embroidery thread works well as well, and I really like it. And then this one is 2 short stories. One of them opens this way. The other one,
you flip it. Oh, that's so cool.
Yes. And this is by Desert Pets Press. I don't think that they are publishing anymore, but you might be able to still buy their chapbooks. This is an example of a tiny chapbook. I haven't been doing chapbooks in time, so I'm not sure when I should wrap up. So I guess we've
got 2-3 minutes. Yeah, for sure. I love this never-ending parade of beautiful bookbinding art. This is just feeding my soul on this rainy Thursday. So okay, I'll let you go on.
So this one's a tiny book from Post Ghost Press, and they are still publishing, but it is just one 8.5 sheet of paper that has been folded into a chapbook, and which I need to figure out how to refold it. This is another type of binding entirely. This is called Japanese stab binding, and you may be able to see it's not folded paper. This is a stack of paper, so it allows for larger books. It does open differently. It doesn't open flat, so there is quite a significant amount of lost page space, but it's gorgeous, and it allows for longer, thicker books. So this book is probably about 50 pages, which is much longer than you could comfortably make a saddle stitch book. And then the last one is, there's also the Copics book, which is that hardcover book binding. This is a little book I made for my girlfriend for our anniversary. So how this works is each of these signatures is 4 sheets of paper, so it's 8 pages, and then you just fold them in half, you sew all of the signatures together, and you make the book board. So underneath this paper, it's just a regular piece of board, and I chose this paper for the inside and this paper for the outside. And these are my favorite ones to give as gifts because they're not super complicated. None of these are super complicated. And all of the instructions are in great detail on the internet.
They look so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. So tell us a little bit. So you do this professionally, not just as a hobby. You do this for the League of Canadian Poets.
I do.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about the League's chapbooks and any calls for submissions that might be upcoming or ongoing, just to wrap up.
So we produce about 4 chapbooks a year, and they are typically themed anthologies. So 2 that are about to launch, and they're available for pre-order. Right, you mentioned that this is going on
at the time of this recording, April 29th.
Recording, thank you, sorry. At the time of this recording, we are launching a collection of poems on and around mental health. And we also have an open call for submissions right now for poems from poets who identify as disabled or living with a disability. There's no rigmarole to do that. It's just self-identification. So you can find any chapbooks that are available for purchase and open calls for submissions at poets.ca/LCP chapbook series. And that's also where you can find a little guide with some of the finer details about chapbook making that I went through today.
Nic, thank you so much. This has been a joy. I love getting crafty. I'm sure a lot of our viewers also are looking for things to do as we continue to endure and find ways to entertain ourselves in our houses. And, what better way to engage with the literary arts than to get your hands dirty with some needle and thread and some beautiful paper and make something pretty.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, I will see you on the internet, and thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening, for tuning in. This has been today's WOTS Weekly Feature. You can find more information about the League of Canadian Poets, including their beautiful chapbooks, at poets.ca. This has been today's WOTS Weekly Feature. For discounts and deals, you can check out toronto.thewordonthestreet.ca/weekly-features. Thank you all so much. Happy Thursday. And also from all of us at WOTS to you, happy Poetry Week.